Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Welcome to March 4th, Top Voice Tuesday. I'm very excited to have Craig Leach with us here. I'm gonna introduce Craig in just a moment, but for those of you that are new to the show, we do this every week, and the purpose of this conversation is really to introduce the amazing group of top voices that we have across the country to each other, learn a little bit about some of the most pressing business issues we have, talk about change, and really give people an opportunity to engage through questions. So thanks for being here. This episode will stream on my YouTube page when we're done. So excited to share that with everyone. But let's jump in and talk to Craig Leach. Craig and I met a couple months ago. Craig is in executive search, but we're going to talk about something a little different today, really about Craig's journey and how he became a top voice. That's one of the questions I ask every time we do these episodes. Right before Craig, I'm going to turn it over to you. For those of you that are in the chat, you'll see, please let us know where you're coming from. We love to take a question or two, see who's online. So please do share where you're dialing in from. Tim, good to see you. Thanks for being a member, and we loved your episode a couple weeks ago. So Craig, tell us who you are, what you do, where you're from, and we're going to jump into your story.
Sure. Craig Leach, in Wichita, Kansas. I do executive search. My primary market industry is animal health and nutrition. I've been doing this now starting my fourth year.
That's great. That's great. Now, what did you do before you kind of got into the search world?
So I spent close to 30 years in the animal nutrition space, from sales, operations, executive roles, commercial cattle feeding, and like any business, any industry, people are the foundation of and the core of all business, and that's an area that really attracted me. I loved working with developing talent internally. Loved building relationships with people that had skill sets that I would need to utilize as I scaled businesses. So wanted to focus and devote my time to that.
That's great. And I think one of the things you'll just learn about this community of top voices, it's such a diversity of people from different walks of life, different sectors, different industries, different parts of the country. I'm pretty sure you're the only person I've met or talked to that started in the sort of animal care business and now focuses on that. So if you're listening and you're in that space, Craig's the guy to reach out to, and Kansas is a good space for that. So but we're going to talk about in this episode, we want to talk about behavior change. And I put that in the title in this conversation about consistency. Every Top Voice Tuesday we do, the first question is, how do you become a top voice? And that's going to be all the questions we talk about with you today, Craig. So tell us how you got to be at the top of the top voice mountain.
Sure. It was nothing that I sought out to achieve. Had no never even crossed my mind. Um, you know, this is the first time that I have not had a team of experts around me, or people that had certain duties. I'm a company of one, so everything falls upon my shoulders. And one of the pieces was, building a personal brand. And LinkedIn is a great tool to build that brand. But like probably a lot of people, I didn't participate in LinkedIn. I just kind of lurked behind the scenes, saw what everybody else was doing. I was introduced to a social media challenge, uh, that the challenge was to pick a platform. I chose LinkedIn, and post every day for 60 days. And so I started that, and at day 61, I just kept going.
Wow, that's great. Now let's dive in, because this is, for those of you listening, we talk about the power of building habits and creating new behaviors and breaking old habits. And there's a lot of science and studies about how long does it take to build a new habit. But in your case, it was 60 days. Um, so before we talk about the mechanics of the change, because this is what I do for a living, and this is why I wanted to have this conversation. Why did you decide to do this? Why? What was, you're a business of one, but there's got to be more to it. Why did you decide to go out on such a big limb from doing almost nothing on LinkedIn to sort of taking this big step?
I think it was a lot of things besides building the brand. I felt like I had built up a lot of comments through the years of talking with clients, talking with, all sorts of people. And they always had something good to give me in the form of feedbacks like, boy, that's really powerful. You ought to tell more people about that. Or, hey, where can you send me some of this stuff you're telling me?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, gosh, there's the perfect medium for that, and it's LinkedIn. That's my preferred. Probably don't have the personality to uh, uh, be on Twitter or Instagram as
Well,
my
come on,
chosen
everyone's on there.
medium.
You can do anything you want to, Craig. You're just
I
getting
agree.
started.
I agree. I agree. But I do believe it takes a little bit different approach to your content, depending on which vehicle you're using. Um, uh, so so that's kind of why I wanted to get into this, was to build a brand, have some name recognition when I reached out to somebody, and probably not in the first 60 days, but definitely in within the first year of being consistent with my posting. I would get a lot of people through LinkedIn message me, hey, I keep seeing your stuff, or hey, I've been following you for some time and
Yeah.
saw these posts, so I know it works. So I've it's been proven to me to work, and uh, my goal is not to get 1 million followers or anything like that. It's just to be consistent out there, be consistent to my brand, and continue to evolve that as I continue my LinkedIn journey.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful, simplistic, and I don't mean simplistic as in easy. I mean simplistic as in clear, kind of mission and purpose. I was with Robin Daniels last week in Dallas. He was the second guest on this series in the middle of January, and I spoke to his leadership team, and we talked about. I have a little clip. I put it on Instagram. I was going to put it on LinkedIn later about the challenge of measuring outcomes, right? And so much of what we do in the corporate world is we focus on ROI, we focus on outcomes, and what you're describing is actually the essence of changing behavior, which is focusing on consistent inputs, right? I'm not worried about what happens. I'm worried about what I'm doing, and I'm worried about where I'm spending my time, and I'm worried about what I'm investing in. And so uh, I love that. So let's dive into some of the details, because I know you've got some great stories to share. And again, for people who are thinking about, how do I become more prevalent on LinkedIn? How do I become more of a personal brand? This is the foundation. Um, One question, Craig. So from the beginning of your first day on this 60-day challenge, when did you get recognition from being recognized as a top voice?
It was so I started January 1st of 2024, and I believe it was June or July of 24 when I almost deleted the email from LinkedIn because I thought it was just, another one of those types of emails,
Yeah.
and ended up reading it before I hit delete, and it said, I'd been awarded a top voice badge, and at that point I was still kind of dumbfounded. I was like, what did I do? I mean, my content's not great.
Oh, come on. It's great. It's great. I've seen it.
So yeah, so I thought, wow, okay. So later on, I learned, there's only like 6,000 people of the billion users on LinkedIn that
Yeah.
have top voice badge. So then it kind of slapped me in the face, like, wow, that is something. So um,
So 6 months. So you spent. So this is just a great example of behavior change in action. So you put together a 60-day commitment. And my guess is that you didn't have a plan for day 59. You had a plan for probably day 1 and 2 and 3, maybe, right?
Yeah, one day at a time.
One day
I
at a
think that
time.
one of the biggest challenges for me was, what do I post about? And so I started with, what am I passionate about? I love studying, reading autobiographies that are centered around leadership, philosophy, how you implement it, characteristics of strong leaders. So I thought, well, hey, I'll post about that. I would say if I had to go back and do it again, I would be a little more, I would start much more personable,
Hmm.
more personal stories. Because I think as I started looking, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, Facebook, whatever, LinkedIn's no different. You start interacting with certain types of posts, and those posts and
That's right.
different profiles start showing up more prevalent in your feed. So I started noticing, boy, there's a ton of people out there talking about leadership and
Yeah.
posting about leadership. Now I'm just, I'm like another raindrop. There's millions of them out there. How do you differentiate them? So I have started, kind of took a different approach to, um, regardless of what business you're in, your ideal customer is out there and they're probably on LinkedIn. So start posting about things that challenges they have, problems that they probably experience every day, and just say, hey, this is how I do it, or this is my approach to this problem, or here's something to think about in regards to this problem. And um, so I had that thought. The next thing I thought, Michael, was I had to be perfect in my response.
Hmm.
Well, you know what? Some of the best interactions I've had has been people saying, "Hey, I think you're completely wrong," or I wouldn't do it this way," and that's great. I'm open to that. I don't. I invite it. It's not gonna. I've got thick skin, but it's helped me learn too, and probably define a little bit better of some problems that I haven't thought about or different ways of thinking that people have. But I think that's what the purpose of posting is get your message out and also be open to receive messages
Yeah.
about how
It,
people do other things.
it's great, and a couple things I want to highlight in the world of change, because I think that story is really, it's really elegant in its sort of composition of this formula, right? So the first part of the formula is do something repeatedly, consistently, every day, every other day, over and over again. Uh, then don't worry about being perfect, right? Experiment, try new things, and find out what works for you. You said something in passing that I think is really important, which is you started posting about things you were passionate about. And I think it's important for people to understand, if you don't have a relationship with the content that you're posting in some way, either you have experience, you're interested, you want to learn about it, it's not going to feel, it's not going to feel uh, energizing to you, right? And that's the science of motivation, right? It has to be something that you feel connected to. And I think that's really just an essential piece. So I have a question for you about that and about this journey. So tell us about the sort of, you know what was scary about this experience for you? What were you worried about? What were you fearful of as you started down this path?
Um, which content or what type of content I should focus on, what format it should be in. Um, and I, it took way more time initially than I had hoped. I started off with trying to create, I'm going to set aside 30 minutes today and I'm going to write a post for, you know, Wednesday.
Yeah.
And that 30 minutes took me an hour and a half just because I was trying to be perfect in everything. Read it back to myself and show it to my wife. Hey, what do you think about this?
I love it.
And trying to find all the critical things I could so that it would be perfect. And but
How long does it take you now? How long does it take you to do a post that you would put out on an average
so
day?
today I can do a month's worth of content in probably 30 minutes.
That's incredible. I mean, what an incredible example again for folks. And thanks in the chat. We've got a few comments from Annalie and I think from Tim. So if anyone's got a question, please do put it in because this is golden behavior change 101, 201 actually. But what a great example of one of the things that stops us in our journey of change is in the early days of doing anything new, we struggle, right? It's complicated. We're inefficient. We don't know what we're doing. It's frustrating. It's anxiety producing. And here you are, I guess, a year later, and you are 30x productivity improvement because you've repeated that behavior for an entire year, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned is that only a small percentage of your followers or the total LinkedIn population is going to see what you post. So repost something. I'm big on KPIs and statistics, and probably will never escape that. But I'll go back and look at my post, which ones had the highest level of engagement, which ones had the most number of likes, which ones were
Oh
reposted the
wow, you're
most.
you're like way more advanced than me in terms of that. I don't look at that stuff, but that's great.
But it helps with my content creation. So, if I have a long form post, that's maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs, short paragraphs, I'll take it over to Chat GPT and say, hey, I want to create 5 posts or 3 posts about, based off of this post, and let it shoot out some suggestions for me. One big thing is don't copy and paste. Um, use the format that it shoots back at you, but use your words and the way you
Yeah.
talk naturally. And um, I think that's one thing that everybody can see now. We've all become very sensitized to AI responses. You can tell it a mile away.
Yeah.
So you can use the format. Just put it in your words, and it helps me with some creativity. Thinking, hey, okay, I like that response, but I think I would word it this way, or put my spin on it that maybe resonates more with my ideal customer or client.
Yeah. There's a chat or there's a question in the chat that I want to come back to. Actually, it's the last question we had planned to end with. So before I ask you that, I want to share a little bit of my own journey in comparison to yours, which is really interesting because I started in maybe the end of 2022 and I would post once a week, but my posts were more long form. So they were like article style posts. And I had no idea. I think I'd get maybe 20 impressions. You get that kind of data back. I had no idea if anyone was reading it. I had a plan for about 2 months worth of content that I was going to post. Much of that has become now what is my book. So I was actually also experimenting with the story that I was going to tell in the book that I just released a month and a half ago. But I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know who was reading it, but I started to get questions like you did. How long does that take you? How long? And it actually, my content was all original. Not to say yours wasn't, but it was all stuff that I was really generating in real time. I mean, some of my posts would take me 2.5 hours because I was writing an article. I was really trying to be thoughtful, but I started to get feedback, which was really rewarding, which was people would say, hey, when I'd see one of your posts come, I'd know that I'd have to sort of sit back and really, really read it. Right. It wasn't a quick hit. It wasn't just, a soundbite. And so, uh, what's interesting about your story, which is so different, is like there's different paths to this outcome, right? And it can be, but it's I did it. I posted every week for a year and a half, right? And I just decided that's what I was going to do. And this podcast series, this LinkedIn Live series, I started at the end of 2024. I said I'm going to do a Top Voice conversation every Tuesday for the entirety of 2025, except for Fourth of July and Christmas week. I'm going to take those weeks off. And people keep asking me, "What are you going to do with this?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. I just want to invest in the behavior of creating this space, and that's what's so great about what you've done." So there's a question in the chat about that, which I think is great. So I'll read it for those folks that maybe can't see. Does Craig view what he has learned with his LinkedIn approach as the process for any other change or habit formation in business? So have you applied what you've learned in other places, and how has that served you?
Yeah, absolutely, it has. In regards to email deliverability, so I do a lot of cold outreach. Um, Even a lot of the outreach that I do to people that I know, I view it as somewhat cold. Um, but email deliverability is continuing to be a major issue. Just because I send an email out doesn't mean that it's going to arrive in somebody's inbox.
Right.
Corporate security is getting tighter and tighter. But you know what does work is picking up the phone. And one, it helps me. If you want to tell me no, hey, I don't have to go through 75 emails to you before I hear no. Anyway, and I think people are more uh, open to taking a phone call. They'd much rather have that interaction than email. So I made it based on this consistency principle of every day I'm going to make 25 outbound phone calls.
Wow.
And some days I hit the mark, some days I exceed it, some days I don't even come close. It depends on other things that are going on, but that's my goal every day, and the consistency from posting on LinkedIn really helped drive my change to picking up the phone. I think, at least for me, I've got a lot of hesitancy picking up the phone and calling somebody that I don't know. I can do it. It's just that initial dialing the numbers. But you know what? I got over that pretty quick. Most people, they don't mind having a short 2-3 minute conversation. I'm not trying to have an hour long conversation, at least, not initially, just, hey,
Right.
this is who I am and what I do. And so anyway, yeah, so that it has, yes, it has impacted my outreach in other ways.
Yeah, I would echo that. It was the same for me. You mentioned cold outreach. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have Chad Johnson on, and he's going to talk about cold outreach. And so everyone should sign into that, because I think it's going to be a good conversation. Because it is tougher, right? It is hard. It takes a lot of courage to pick up the phone and know that most of those conversations maybe aren't going to turn into something, but one of them might, right? And you told a story before we got on that I would love for you to tell again, about a post you did and making a mistake in the post, and what that turned into in terms of a relationship. I think it'll be really illustrative for people who are worried about being perfect and trying something new and creating new habits.
Sure. So I mentioned using AI to help you refine your content or even give you ideas. So I had a post that I wanted to run through AI to, um, I think I instructed the AI to, make it read at a ninth grade level, gave it several directions to use instructions. And one of the one of the prompts that I said was create a hook for this post, something that's going to grab their attention, the first second they look at that post. So the response that I got back, it created a hook, but it also included the prompt in it, in the message. And trying to, I probably had 10 things going on like a lot of us do. I copied and pasted it, put it in LinkedIn, and never thought anything about it. And I got a message back from somebody who saw that post, and he said, "Hey, you might want to edit your post. It says, starts off with create a hook." And of course, I was embarrassed and thought, the whole world had probably that's the one post that was going to
Right.
go viral or something. And
That's right.
so anyway, but it started a conversation,
That's great.
and he
That's
told me
great.
what he did, and that he worked with companies helping create content, and I, um, in his way, how to build a consistent message in the market.
Yep.
And he gave me some insight and pointers on tools to use, and different approaches to creating content. So it was a great mistake to make.
What a great mistake. That is a what a perfect phrase for those of you that are listening. Just so you know, and people that are on the watching this or listening, um, mistakes and errors, by the way, are the one of the single largest prompts for neuroplasticity that we have, right? Because an error signals to the brain that something needs to change. And when we have really established pathways of behavior, a mistake is a signal. And if you pay attention to that signal and learn from it, a lot of growth can happen. And I just love that story. First of all, that's a very meta thing to say, create a hook. And the hook was the phrase create a hook, right? Like that's kind of a fun, it's kind of a funny opener. But I've had similar things happen. I've had people respond to me like, "Why did you send me this?" Or I've had people who say, "Hey, maybe you should take a look at this." Or my wife turns out to be a great editor. She's like, "You have the hyphen in the wrong spot," and all sorts of stuff. And so, I would encourage everyone to just be open and available to mistakes. Everybody makes them. We're all learning as we go. It's part of the process, right? And if you're doing it right, you're going to make more. And I just think that's great. Um, this has been so huge, Craig. I want to get to two last questions. One of them your bonus one, but we didn't talk a lot about search and what you do. And I would just love for you to share, what how has this experience informed your role, your view of like executive search? What's changed about your approach? How's that community going? We just love to kind of get some wisdom from you there.
Boy, I may be short on wisdom, but uh,
Well, you've dropped a lot in this episode, so don't worry. You've shared a lot.
I one comment that I get, and I hear consistently is, talking with hiring managers or executives, and it's common to hear, for me anyway, is that it's hard for us to find good people. And that's what I make my living on, is talking to people, whether they're a candidate or a hiring manager, or sometimes they're both. Um, I've always had the mindset that everybody is a player.
Yeah.
Everybody's got talent. It doesn't matter what their role is, but it's our job as leaders, or hiring managers, is to make sure we have the right talent deployed in the right position.
Mm.
Um, and there's maybe the most I'll use a baseball analogy. Sometimes the most valuable player on the team is the guy who doesn't play every day, but
Yeah.
he's the guy that's consistent. He's there. He puts his work in every day. He shows up when his name is called for whatever position he needs to go play that day. He plays it to the best of his ability. He may never win an MVP award based on batting average, RBIs, and home runs, but he provides everything that you need from him that day to the best of his ability. So um, it's really rewarding to be able to meet new people every day, learn what they do, what their passion is, what excites them, and what they feel like they were put here to do.
That's beautiful. You know that I love a good sports analogy. I do them all the time. And you shared it in your description, right? The incredible power of consistency, showing up every day is a talent, right? We tend to think of talent in big swings, right? Splashy moments. But you know what? Probably the most important talent we all could adopt is consistency and showing up every day and repetition and stability and making mistakes. And I just think, Craig, that's really just a beautifully said insight and so wise. So you said you didn't share a lot of wisdom, but you did right there. Our last question before we wrap, is the bonus question, which you don't know what it is because the last guest left it for you. So the question was, if you found out tomorrow was your last day, what would you do today?
Well, it wouldn't be on a podcast. It wouldn't. I'd be outside. I'd go do something. Love to bike, golf, hike, do all those things outside. I would spend every minute I could outside around my family.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, thank you, Craig, for sharing just a ton of wisdom in this conversation. We all can learn a lot from your very straightforward, very dedicated behavior change. I think this has really been incredible, and it's why I wanted to have the conversation. For those of you that maybe don't get to listen in real time, this will be posted on my YouTube channel, Michael J. Lopez 9. I will start building a newsletter off of this and sharing it with people with some additional thoughts around behavior change. So I'm also working on some new things to come out into the world and share and sort of create. This is my behavior change for 2025 and really excited for you all to be a part of it. Thanks again, Craig. Excited to watch you. Follow Craig if you're not doing that already. Connect with him. Craig, is there anything you want to offer up to folks before we drop? Anything to listeners, people who are following you? Anything to leave them with?
Yeah, started a new behavior change. Started probably 3 or 4 months ago. I started hearing a lot of chatter from people that I spoke with about AI and starting to develop, putting a slot in their budgets for AI. And I just started asking, what are you going to do with this AI budget? And I'd say 9 out of 10 people would reply, I don't know, but I feel like we have to start developing something with AI. And I use AI all the time for a lot of different things, not just content creation. So I'm creating this new approach to my business that I'm moving my clients over to called AI Talent Partner. And instead of, a lot of people, they post a job opening when they have that opening. I'm taking a different approach, not trying to eliminate the human aspect out of business or recruiting at all, but you creating a tool that I can help a client implement that is sort of a reverse engineering. Instead of posting a job opening, let's go out and build a system that researches your market, researches certain types of people you're looking for, and we go out and market, messages, LinkedIn messages, emails, phone calls. Let's build that cadence up so that we are constantly working on developing a pipeline into our business versus just going out and, hey, I need to hire somebody in the next 30 days. Who do you know? Well, let's do that up front so that when, somebody retires or resigns unexpectedly, we're already many steps ahead in the game. So it's still in its pilot phase, but anybody that has any interest in learning more about that would love to do a special one-time offer, or kind of a trial run. It'll help me. Hopefully it'll help you, and give it a go.
Love that. Love that. And it's an exciting program. So anyone that wants to pilot that with Craig, please reach out. I know you talked about some sort of discounts on pricing and opportunities to kind of learn from that. So I know a little bit about it, and I think it's great. A wonderful offer. So we'll leave it there, Craig. Hope folks take you up on your offer. You absolutely should. Thank you for sharing your journey and all of the incredible wisdom that you provided. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Michael.